The first rule of children's theatre is to make the backstage look boring. Parents like to picture glue pots, giggles, and maybe a papier-mâché volcano drying in the corner, not the tangled wires and exhausted adults that actually keep a show afloat. I, Clara Vincenzi, had enforced that illusion for 13 seasons at the Little Lantern Theatre, and I was proud of it. So when a touring ventriloquist's on-stage collapse sent 24 children screaming into the lobby and left a marionette grinning alone in the spotlight, my tidy credibility unravelled in one convulsive gasp. It happened on a Thursday dress rehearsal, 2 days before Brookhaven's annual children's festival. The ventriloquist, Felix Moore, was our headliner, the type who could make a wooden soldier recite tongue twisters in Czech while he gulped water, chew a deck of cards, then somersault into his own top hat. He travelled with only one puppet, a boyish marionette called Little Larch. Its head was oversize, its cheeks exaggerated apples, its glass eyes set in a permanent twinkle. The moment I first met Larch in the loading bay, something about that smile felt too certain, as if the puppet already knew your name and the ending of your story. Silly, I told myself, chalking the impression up to fatigue. Festival week always left me overtired and over-caffeinated. Felix took the stage mid-afternoon. He wore a green frock coat and corduroy knickers, leaning into Edwardian nostalgia. The theatre was empty except for my assistant stage manager, Ken Drescher, the lighting intern, and me. Felix placed a wooden chair downstage centre, sat, and threaded Larch's strings between his fingers like a harpist tuning. He nodded to the booth. Lights came up to a buttery wash. Music, an old phonograph crackle, played. "Hello, Brookhaven," Felix squeaked out of Larch without moving his own lips. He had a glittering energy, the kind that rippled outward and made even overworked professionals watch like transfixed toddlers. 3 minutes in, everything soured. Felix's back stiffened, his right hand slackened, causing Larch to droop as though suddenly bashful. Felix coughed, tried to speak, coughed harder. The sound was wet and ragged. His eyes bulged, his face drained to chalk. He lurched from the chair, staggered 2 steps, and collapsed onto the marley floor. Larch's strings, now free, snagged on Felix's sleeve. The puppet yanked upright, bobbing grotesquely, as if jerking in triumph. Ken shouted, the intern killed house lights. I vaulted onto the stage. Felix was alive, pulse thready and breath shallow, but unconscious. An ambulance arrived within 6 minutes, siren chopping the April air. Paramedics hauled him away, while Larch lay on his side, smile shining in strobe flashes from the emergency lights. That tableau, Felix inert, the puppet smirking, twisted something in my stomach, like seeing a cat grin beside a toppled songbird. Rumours hatch faster than fruit flies. By nightfall, our board president had heard a version in which Felix's soul was trapped inside his dummy, the puppet was cursed, and 10 children fainted from ghostly screams. Parents started calling the box office, anxious to know whether the festival would still open. My inbox choked with questions about refund policies in the event of hauntings. The publicity I'd craved had metastasized into the kind that drains budgets. At midnight, I returned to the theatre, determined to secure the puppet before anyone else spun a story about it. The building slept in leftover gelled light, a faint violet glow from someone's forgotten SciCQ. Larch sat on a prop shelf, cross-legged, hands folded like a student waiting for roll call. I told myself he was simply carved plywood, fabric, and acrylic. Still, I spoke to him. "Your partner's in intensive care," I whispered. I don't know if you're to blame or just unlucky. Either way, you're evidence now. I placed him in a storage trunk, latched it, and locked the trunk inside my office. Only then did I exhale. The next morning I reached the hospital before visiting hours officially began. An ICU nurse, herself a community theatre alumna, let me sneak in. Felix lay pale among beeping machines but conscious. His voice was thin, as if spoken through gauze. "Your puppet's safe," I said by way of greeting. He managed a wan smile. "I'm not afraid of Larch. Others are." He swallowed with effort. "Director Vincenzi, you need to know something. Larch, he has history. I read your playbill bio, carved by a Czech master, discovered in an attic, etc." Felix shook his head, tubes rustling. "That's the children's version. The truth's uglier." A pause to catch breath. In 1927, the original owner, Emil Brandt, died mid-performance. Cardiac arrest, or so papers claimed. Witnesses said the puppet finished the routine alone, speaking lines Brandt never recorded. He coughed. Stagehand found Emil's face twisted, like mine was yesterday. He pointed a tremulous finger to his own cheeks. Local press blamed Brandt's drinking. Puppeteers whispered about possession. Larch disappeared after the funeral, until I found him in a Prague antiques shop. Are you suggesting a wooden toy tried to kill you? He gazed beyond me, at a spot where the fluorescent ceiling strobed. I'm saying stories latch on to Larch. Whether they're true or not, people believe them, and belief makes trouble. Felix's collapse, according to doctors, resembled toxin exposure, potentially something inhaled. They doubted a heart condition. Tox screen results were pending, but the list of possibilities was long and sinister. Static electricity from a synthetic wig would have felt cozy by comparison. Back at Little Lantern, I tried to bury myself in logistics, reorder crayons for the lobby craft table, double-check the contract for the petting zoo goat handler. Yet every task circled back to that marionette. The board demanded a statement by evening. The borough's safety inspector scheduled an unannounced walkthrough. Ken, my assistant stage manager, floated proposals about cancelling Felix's set and promoting another act instead. Each suggestion came with a brittle smile that didn't reach his eyes. Late Friday afternoon, the police called. They'd examined Felix's costume and found a faint residue of strychnine on the lapel. It likely aerosolized when Felix adjusted his collar, entering his lungs. The dose had been small, enough for convulsions, not death, but whoever placed it there wanted a spectacle. Theatre access was limited, only staff, volunteers, and performers, including me. The officer asked whether any colleague had a grudge against Felix. I promised to compile a list. Hung up. Stared at my phone like it had grown fangs. Conspiracy theories thrive in tech booths. That evening, I eavesdropped on the lighting intern Sky, whispering to Ken. They say Larch was carved from gallows wood, that the last breath of a hanged man gets trapped inside. Ken laughed, but tension cut the sound short. Theatres love curses, helps sell tickets. I stepped into the glow of the Q monitor. Not this time, I said. Tomorrow's festival depends on us proving rationality. Let's focus. Ken saluted, but his eyes slid sideways toward the locked office where Larch idled. I didn't miss the glance. At home, I drank chamomile tea and scrolled through digitized newspaper archives. I found the 1927 article Felix referenced. Puppeteer dies, dummy keeps talking, audience screams. The reporter described Larch's gleeful yelp echoing after Emil Brandt toppled. A stagehand named Howard Drescher testified that he severed the puppet's strings with a fire axe because it wouldn't stop speaking. Drescher. The surname hummed inside my skull. Ken's last name was Drescher. Coincidence? It was nearing 2 a.m., but clarity sometimes blooms in exhausted minds. I drove back to the theatre with my laptop and a thermos. The security lights cast long shadows between empty seats. I unlocked my office. The trunk stood exactly where I'd left it, padlock sealed. Yet when I lifted the lid, Larch was smiling up at me from a different position, arms spread, legs straight, as if greeting an old friend. I remembered leaving him with hands folded. Fatigue can misremember, I argued, though my skin prickled cold. I reached in, turned the puppet over, and studied the back of his head. Under the hairline hung a small brass clasp I hadn't previously noticed. I unhooked it. A wooden panel swung open, revealing a cavity barely wider than my thumb. Inside lay a cotton wad soaked in something oily and bitter. I recoiled. Strychnine can be prepared as a powder mixed with oil. A puppet with a built-in poison compartment, a stagehand named Drescher 94 years ago, who hacked its strings, and my own Drescher descendant presently running my backstage. Neat symmetry tightened around my chest. Before I could shut the lid, the office door clicked. Ken entered, carrying a flashlight and a canvas satchel. We stared at each other across the desk, Larch sprawled between us. "You were supposed to be home," he said. "So were you." He glanced at the open panel in the puppet's skull. His shoulders sagged, as if surrendering a burden. I wasn't going to hurt anyone else. Felix was only meant to get sick, cancel the act, stir up the legend. The festival would buzz with intrigue, free publicity. You poisoned a human being for marketing? Not poison, irritant. The dose wouldn't kill. He set the satchel down, opened it to reveal syringes, cotton gloves, and a small bottle labelled Strychnos nux vomica extract. My stomach lurched. My great-grandfather saved this theatre once, Ken continued quietly. Howard Drescher swung that axe and became a footnote. People forgot him. They forgot the old shows, the craftsmanship, the roots of this place. We're sinking into kids' sparkle musicals. But a real haunting? That makes headlines. A cursed marionette brings gravitas. So you resurrected the curse. I cleaned Larch, painted him, installed the compartment, rehearsed the story. Felix just accelerated the plan by collapsing too soon. I needed more time to build atmosphere. I couldn't decide which was worse, his warped zealotry or the calmness with which he confessed. My phone was in my purse, 5 steps away. Ken stood between. I tried to keep my tone level. How did you access Larch beforehand? Ken shrugged. You let me unpack the touring crates. I spent years restoring props. I have keys to every case. I used nitrile gloves, a dab of oil on Felix's collar 10 minutes before rehearsal, a prop hat wave to disperse the vapour. He had no idea. Ken stroked Larch's varnished hair. The puppet did its job beautifully. A sound behind him made us both jerk, footsteps in the hall. The lighting intern, Sky, poked her head around the doorframe, earbuds dangling. Ken, I thought you were... Her gaze landed on the syringes. Whoa, Ken lunged to slam the door. I reacted faster, shoving the trunk off the desk. It crashed against Ken's shins. He stumbled. Sky yanked the door open again, screaming for help. I seized the satchel and bolted into the corridor, shouting, "Call 911!" Sky raced for the lobby phone. Ken limped after me, fury bleaching his face. Backstage corridors form a labyrinth of hanging curtains, rolling flats, and coiled extension cords. I darted through, heart hammering. My destination. The trap room beneath the stage, where cell service failed, but where people rarely chased. I dropped the satchel down the ladder and climbed after, hoping to slow Ken. Darkness swallowed me. The only light seeped through slats in the floorboards above, outlining my silhouette like a prison bar pattern. Footsteps clattered overhead, then on the ladder rungs. "Clara, you don't understand," Ken panted. "Think of the coverage. We'd be booked solid for years." I reached for the fuse panel on the wall and yanked the master switch. The theatre went pitch black. Ken cursed. In darkness, familiarity is weapon. I navigated by memory to the opposite ladder, scaled it, and emerged stage right. Emergency LEDs glowed faintly now that mains were off. Skye met me, phone in hand. "Police are on their way," she mouthed. Ken emerged from the trap room empty-handed. I had the satchel. He paused, eyes catching the red blink of the lobby security camera I'd installed last fall. Its backup battery hummed. Ken's bravado faltered. Sirens wailed outside within minutes. Officers cuffed Ken while he spluttered about legacy and destiny. They collected the puppet, the satchel, my statement, Skye's corroboration. Larch's grin looked almost remorseful under fluorescent police flashlights, as if the wood itself felt misused. That night I finally slept. Morning brought drizzle and uncertainty. The Children's Festival Board considered cancelling again. Too much scandal, too little time. But Felix emailed from the hospital, short sentences typed with trembling hands, insisting the show must go on. He even offered a compromise. Saturday afternoon, parents gathered in the auditorium, tension stiff as fresh starch. I stepped on stage alone, no spotlight tricks, just work lights. "Good afternoon. I'm Clara Vincenzi, director here at Little Lantern. You've heard alarming rumors. Here's the truth." I explained Felix's condition, improving, prognosis good. I described Ken's arrest without gory detail. I told them the puppet was evidence, secure. The children fidgeted, less interested in criminal procedure than in entertainment. So I invited a surprise guest. Felix via live video feed projected onto the cyclorama. He waved weakly from his hospital bed, IV stand like a skeletal co-host. The kids cheered. Felix thanked them and announced a replacement act he'd personally arranged. The Puppetry Club from Brookhaven Middle School performing The Hare and the Tortoise with sock puppets. Giddy applause swept the room. No curses, no poisons, just felt fabric and earnest 12-year-olds. Showtime resumed. Laughter ricocheted off the proscenium. I watched from the wings, the familiar glow of possibility warming my chest again. In the weeks that followed, tabloids tried milking the cursed puppet angle, but the narrative fizzled when faced with police reports and medical data. Ken pled guilty to assault and reckless endangerment. He wrote me a letter from jail, claiming he never intended real harm, and asking if the theatre would preserve Larch as a historical artifact. I didn't answer. The police eventually released the puppet, its chain of custody complete. I considered burning it. Instead, I drove to a private storage facility outside town, sealed the marionette inside an archival box, and rented a climate-controlled unit under my name. Some objects are too heavy with myth to sit on a public shelf, but too potent to destroy. Larch now rests in darkness, strings neatly coiled, smile unseen. I visit once a year, check for deterioration, and leave without lingering. Every season since, the Little Lantern Theatre has opened the Children's Festival with a new rule posted backstage. All props are tools, never talismans. Handle them with respect and reason. Kids still laugh, glow sticks still wave, Curtain calls still bloom like bouquets, and backstage may still be a tangle of wires and exhausted adults, but I no longer strive to make it look boring. I want it to look honest. Because the scariest thing I've learned isn't that a puppet might be cursed. It's that a believer with a plan can carve any curse he wants and drape it over innocent wood like a theatre scrim. Thin, translucent, dangerously convincing. Honesty, then, is our best spotlight. Some nights, when the building settles and the rafters creak, I think about Felix's warning. Stories latch on. But if stories must exist, let them be truthful, rooted in craftsmanship and care, not in fear. I lock the theatre doors, hum a lullaby to the ghosts of velvet drapes and sawdust, and trust that no puppet, cursed or otherwise, will ever again command my stage without my permission.